came to us once before and did prosthetic makeup. We turned a student into a zombie, so which was made in green as well, I think. I've tried to find that artist interview. I still have it on a laptop somewhere. So Helen has moved from prosthetic makeup, prosthetics. That's the longest job on a film set, I'm sure, right? First to come and the last to leave.
Yeah, pretty much.
And ruling hours, and into indie producing, and I'll let her explain her pathway. But you'll notice up there, just in the credits, that Helen's background. If you could just
scroll down a bit.
Scroll down, was it? The one we got the TAFE classes, I think, in here. Just education there. There's some Leonard's TAFE and Meadowbank TAFE are in there.
Yeah, the Southwestern Sydney Institute TAFE as well.
And right, okay.
Yeah, that's where I did barbering.
Oh, barbering. So
yeah.
Hair, makeup, with the kind of the origin of her skills. It's led into other areas, obviously, but Helen's real kind of notoriety at the moment comes from her prosthetic makeup work, particularly on things like Talk to Me and others. And someone said in her interview we did, she just loves gore when we did the class. And the artist interview. Yeah, if you want a sucking chest wound or half a brain removed, talk to Helen. So without further ado, HelenTuck, and we'll do some Q&A, but if there are questions during the course of Helen's discussion, I'm thinking you just ask the questions as they come up. Okay, so let's go.
You've got one now? Sure.
No, we're on.
I just wanted to know if you also worked on the latest.
Oh, on Bring Her Back? No, I was on something else. But the same people that I worked with on Talk to Me went down there for Bring Her Back. They had a couple of prosthetic teams going at once for that one. I don't know. I haven't, since starting to do producing, I've sort of stopped taking long form makeup jobs just because I haven't had time. But yeah, I still jump in and out for fun things. Like I was just doing the latest Spaceballs movie that's filming in Sydney at the moment, which was hilarious. There was so many cool makeups.
That's a follow-up to the Mel Brooks Spaceballs, the original one, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to to be really funny.
Yeah. They saw they did a little shopping.
100%.
That's more on some outer space.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so a bit about me. I've been in hair and makeup and prosthetics for ages, I think about 15 years. What got me wanting to work in film, I've always been obsessed with makeup. I was that kid that used to steal my mum's eyeliner pencils and draw bruises on myself and stuff like that. And I was always doing my friends' makeups for if they were going to parties or something. It never occurred to me that that could be a job until I watched the behind the scenes of Lord of the Rings. So their appendices that they've got, which is hours and hours of amazing footage of how each individual department, from scripting to art department to costume, makeup, all of that. I watched that and that was my light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, people do this as a job, that's amazing. So at the time I was doing a fine art degree, which I immediately left and jumped straight into doing makeup at a private college. So back then I don't think they had many courses at TAFE that did specialised makeup and stuff like that. So I went to a private college which doesn't exist anymore, it's shut down. But yeah, most people go to TAFE or they go to a place called Scotty's at ACMUS, which is on Broadway. Anyway, so I did that and then I did a whole bunch of extra courses. So like you saw in my education thing, some of it was in things like hairdressing and barbering. Some of it was like prosthetics work with Makeup Effects Group, which is one of the bigger studios in Sydney. They were the ones that I worked with on Talk to Me, which by the way won the Actor Award for hair and makeup that year, which was awesome, which is very cool. While I'm chatting about that, maybe I will bring up my thingy. Slideshow. Okay, so some of the bigger films that I've worked on in terms of makeup and prosthetics, obviously Talk to Me was huge. At the time, didn't have any idea that it was going to be as huge as it was. All I knew was that it had some really fun, cool makeups in it, which I'm going to show you some soon. Also things like Furiosa, the Fall Guy. They're making a new live-action Voltron, which we shot earlier in the year, so I was on the prosthetics crew for that. Things like The Narrow Road to the Deep North, which is an Amazon series that was about prisoner of war. So we had all these like really skeletal makeups to do.
You've got images of that, haven't
I
you?
do,
We'll see
yeah.
that,
Which is very cool. Yeah, and things like Thor, Love and Thunder, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. But then also a whole bunch of indie films, like Sissy is one of them. Yeah, tons of them. So just some cool prosthetics to show you. So this is from Talk to Me. So I was applying this whole prosthetic, which was really fun. I can't believe this little kid was such a trooper because he's had to sit day after day for hours and hours in the chair. So on Talk to Me, the longest day that we did was a 17-hour day that started at 3 a.m. and that's pretty normal for prosthetics. So the only people that are on the film set any longer than prosthetics people, it tends to be unit because they have to get there first and unlock the truck for us. Yeah?
I just wanted to know what we do with that, making the eyes red.
So those are full sclera contacts. I wonder if I can zoom in. Actually, there's a better shot here. So he's wearing, and they wore a lot of contact lenses through all of Talk to Me, but anytime you want to achieve this kind of effect that isn't with VFX, they've got to be contact lenses. So they're specialty made to fit the people, and they're never shared, obviously, between any actors. But basically, this is like a bloodied full, and they call them full sclera lenses, where they cover all of your eye, so the whites included. They are an absolute pain in the ass to get in and out, and they're really uncomfortable to wear. So another reason why this kid was a trooper for actually being able to...
And they could barely see out from them.
Yeah, everything's a bit blurry for them, and it just makes it really difficult. They also have time limits on how long you can have these in. It's 4 hours maximum before you need to take them out and have a break. So obviously timing is pretty crucial in terms of...
Is that the same with the black one?
Yeah, yeah. So they had heaps of black ones in there in Talk to Me as well. So this kind of stuff is what I love doing because sometimes when you're doing things like aliens and demons and things like that, you have a lot of liberty in the sense that nobody's seen a real demon or an alien or whatever in real life. But usually people have seen injuries, they've seen old age makeups and stuff. And so you sort of have to do things very realistically. So I really like realism, but when it comes to things like unrealistic things, this was our drowned demon. She was really creepy. I think in the actual film, she only pops up for a second. She's one of the demons that gets summoned forth. But yeah, so she was a creepy one to do. She's also got full sclera contact lenses that are yellowed across the eyeball, which is fun. And all of these makeups were ages to put on. This is like 4 hours, I think, this one.
You pack the cheeks as well in some cases, or...?
This one was actual, they're just prosthetics that have swelling, so we didn't really need to do any adjusting internally, but sometimes we will. Like if we've got really subtle pieces but need more drooping, that's what they did.
So you can put sort of like pieces on and then blend them down to the skin, you know?
Yeah. This is just, this was a test makeup that I did before we actually got down to Adelaide for some of our burns. One of our main demons has got full body sort of burn makeups, and we were coming up with cool new methods to do that. So these are actually tattoo transfers that we've added to with colour. So that was sort of one of the only ways that we could get huge coverage of the skin without it taking 10 hours to actually do the makeup. Because this guy was Quain, his name, and he's completely covered head to toe in burns. And so we use this method where basically like tattoo transfers, we'd do big patches of his legs and stuff with that and have prosthetics that connected them and paint that connected them. But I'll show you this because it's kind of cool. Can I get full screen on this?
Maybe if you push green your top left or something, on your laptop. Can you get full screen, Rob? Is that, probably is that yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, either way, I just wanted to play this because it was, this is when he didn't have his teeth in for the character, but he was just running lines on set, and it was really quite creepy watching him just sit there and talk, so. So this guy, this was a 6-hour makeup, and it took 4 of us working on him at once. So every time this guy was on, it was a 17-hour day because it was also an hour and a half to remove. So if you imagine we had 6 hours to put the makeup on, and we had to do a full shoot day, and then an hour and a half to remove. And he was 77 at the time. So a bit of a legend. And I want to show you this as well, is a bit of a time lapse of us doing his makeup. This was one of the test makeups before we flew down to Adelaide. So it gets to be a very expensive day for the production whenever they've got huge prosthetics in.
Do the directors ever come in and like be like?
Yeah, through the whole process. So when we did this test makeup, they actually said, can we amp the colour up? Can we beef everything up for when we actually got to it? So yeah, so you can see this is some of the stills from the actual film, and he's a lot more sort of purpley red, a lot more burnt.
It would have been helpful that they cast the thin guys so they could build things on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got to think about, you know, your cast in those physical terms and what you can do to them, and, you know, if you're beefy, it'll probably
yeah, and
the same thing.
This guy, for instance, so see how he's also got contact lenses in?
Yeah.
So he actually he's had a really horrific traumatic eye injury in the past. So he didn't mention that until we put the makeup on about 3 times on him. And I was the one that was always doing the blending of the pieces right up against his waterline, where you have to acetone off the edge of the prosthetic. And he complimented me on my very steady hands at the time, and then mentioned that at one point when he was a kid, he'd been stabbed through the eyeball with something and suffered a lot of medical trauma as a result. So I'm pretty amazed that someone like that actually let us do any of this to him, which was pretty crazy. This is an example of when the kid in the film, he gets his head absolutely smashed to pieces against a table. So we actually had a dummy that I painted. So this is the actor standing next to the dummy that's being held up next to him to show you.
To do the dummy, do they do the full face
Yeah.
mask where you breathe through a straw while the plaster goes off?
Yeah. So it's a full face cast, and then we, do a reverse, like sculpt anything that we need in that. So obviously this one's the dummy, because its eyes are shut, and this one is our actor standing next to it.
Another thing that actors have to be able to endure is, they look, you feel like you're dying and drowning or something, don't you?
Yeah.
Not all of them can do it, so.
No, it's...
Everyone on Final Destination has trauma because a lot of dummies were used.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot. So to do a face cast, you basically you get like a bald cap put over your hair, and then you get completely covered in either silicone or what's called alginate. So it's this heavy, sticky kind of stuff, and we leave little holes open for the nose so that you can breathe. Then it's plaster bandage all over it. You have to sit there and not move a muscle, because any time you move, as soon as it's setting, whatever face shape you've got, that's what's going to be set in the mold. So yeah, it's not fun, not something that anybody who's got claustrophobia can deal with very easily. So here's an example of a makeup that I did for Last King of the Cross. So yeah, it's another one where this guy's been beaten to a pulp, bashed over the head with some sort of implement. But it's the same kind of like really traumatic injury makeups that whenever we come out of the makeup truck, people just go, oh my God, wow. this is an example from the narrow road to the deep north, where they hired all these really, really skinny actors, and we had to do a whole bunch of trauma, injury kind of things, and a lot of dirt breakdown. And so here's a bunch of them in a row.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So these actors, they were on specialty diets. So not only were they hired because they were skinny to start with, we shot a whole bunch before Christmas of them sort of at the start of their journey of being like prisoners of war. And then when we came back at the end of January, through that whole process, they'd been on a really low, like 800 calories a day kind of diet. And they were all staying in the same hotel room, the same hotel. Yeah.
Just wondered, is there a reason why they're all guys? Or is
It was a male prisoner of war camp.
Oh.
Yeah.
it... Okay.
So it was based on a true story, and it's about the prisoners that they got to build the train line from Thailand to Burma. So yeah, but apparently they had one cheat day, which was Christmas Day, and they all ate so much they were horrendously sick.
Yeah, exactly what happened to real person. The ribs, Helen, you've enhanced them?
Yes, so
what have you
on
done there?
some of these guys, so you know, some of them don't have rib prosthetics, like these guys don't. Some of them do. So these are prosthetics ribs that we've put on to make it look like they've got much more sunken in chests, which is fun.
What about that one?
No, that's just him, which is insane. But yeah, so it was a really cool, harrowing thing to work on. It was actually, we had a lot of crew members that had to step off because they were crying from some of the torture scenes because it all felt very real. Jacob Elordi's in this, if anyone gets all excited about.
INDconn.
Yeah.
I saw it the other day on the screen. Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks incredible. Yeah.
So just going back to, where are we? Going back to these. Yeah, so some of my first jobs that I ever did were all student films. That was my method of trying to get my name out there and get a portfolio of work together, was I just contacted every single TAFE, every like afters, every film school, and was like, I volunteer as tribute, I'll do their makeup for their short films, anything like that. And that, for me, that was the best way forward, because for every job that you did, not only are you getting images of your work, which is really important, like people tend to want to be able to see what you can do before they'll hire you for things, but every job came with a whole bunch of contacts, which led to the next and the next and the next. My very first big job that I ever got was Gods of Egypt, way back in 2012 or 2013 or
Something like that. They shot a lot of it over in Centennial Park.
yeah. So the only reason that I managed to get on that, and this is I think a bit of an indication as to how stubborn I am, it took me 7 emails to the designer before she agreed to finally put me on a job. So I was sort of...
Call me, I want a friend of mine, production designer.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, there you go. Well, that was what I did. I would go through IMDb and find every single film that's shot in Sydney, find every single person that worked on it, find every single one of their email addresses, and I would email them relentlessly until they finally talked to me.
IMDb here. You go to IMDb Pro.
Yeah.
I tell all my classes, you've got to log in as professional, you've got to credit card, you've got to make sure you don't get robo-debited, you've got to come out of it within 40 days.
Yeah.
So you get like 40 days free, but you can then chase all the contacts on IMDb Pro. Not
Yeah.
the normal IMDb Pro, but make sure you get out of it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Just want to throw that in.
Yeah, I mean, I pay for it, mate, just because I need it. But yeah, that is a very good good point. It's good to become a bit of a detective in terms of being able to track down people's contact details, because that's sort of how I managed to get my name out there enough that people started remembering it, and then remembering to put me on crew lists, which is, you know, always fun.
When did you sign up with Top Tex or something like that?
I used to be with Ozcrew,
Oscar.
and I sort of I ended up giving up on that because I feel like I was paying them to manage my calendar and I was bringing in all the work myself.
That's what we all set up.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's sort of, it can be really helpful, especially for people who do a lot of commercial work and TVCs and things like that. They're really helpful because a lot of the times there's heaps of them going around. But for me, it was mostly film, and almost always it was word of mouth that got me my next jobs. It would be someone who...
These are, they're not really agents, they're booking services for film technicians, cameras, cinematography, sound, blah, blah, blah. But in grips and gaffers, it works for them on more who do shorter engagements, sound recorders and things. But for longer term, designers, art directors, prosthetics can make their own makeup, can make their own contacts. The work comes to you, you're paying about $140 a month or something to do them. So that's just to explain what Helen means by Oscar. There's another group called Top Technicians, there's about 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
But they're like listing services. Sorry.
Yeah, and I mean, it can be, look, sort of, Auscrew, not so much, it's not prestigious in a way, but if you're with top techs, generally, that means that you've, you know, they're very selective, so they don't just pick anyone.
You've got to have credits before they let you in.
Yeah, exactly, which is, a whole thing. The other thing that's really important and something I did a lot of is networking. So there's constant industry events happening for various different things. Like, you know, I've managed to sign up for a whole bunch of things like Women in Film TV, and they do networking drinks and stuff like that. And it can be a bit nerve-wracking when you're sort of early on in your career to just rock up to these things and not know anyone. But it's really important to actually do that, because that's the best way for other people to remember your face and remember who you are, and then go, oh, I'm going to think of that person next time I'm hiring, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and they're really, you find people are generous. You know, you go to these things, you meet people that you never meet other, you might go 10 years without meeting them. And they're incredible. Industry bodies are great. Cinematography, I'm in the production design guild. There's sound, there's directors, assistant directors, producers, your teachers will run you through them, but industry bodies are incredibly important. You just go to the events, turn up, meet people. The big word, networking.
Yeah, it is important. It's also important, I think, to keep really good records of you and who you are, which is not just having a website, although that's very important, but also keeping your IMDb up to date. So you don't need a pro account to update your IMDb. Anybody can do that. So most of the time, my credits that I get added to my IMDb are done by me, because half the time producers don't always remember to do absolutely everyone that was on a crew.
That's right.
Yeah.
Particularly with your crews.
Yeah.
On the scale of Furiosa.
Oh yeah, like Furiosa and Fall Guy and things like that. Unless I add. Yeah. I mean, we had on Spaceballs, which I just did a week on, we had 45 hair and makeup artists in what's called the crowd room, which is doing all of the background and extras. So that's not including the main team, which would have about 8 or so people. So it's a lot of people in just one department for a job like that. So it's almost never going to happen that someone's going to add you to the IMDb. Just on websites and stuff as well, one of the reasons why I have also gotten quite a bit of work in my hair and makeup career is because I managed to get myself on page 1 of Google when you Google Special Effects Makeup Sydney. I don't know if I'm still there because I've been producing a bit more lately, but that's really important to do. Like, learn what SEO means, which is search engine optimization. Constantly update it. The more you update your website, the more Google goes, oh, that's an interesting thing that keeps updating. I better bump it up the list. And always link to other people. So backlinks is always really helpful in terms of getting Google's attention and pulling your website up. Is basically linking to other websites and having them link back to you. So when I have things like, I don't know, like if I've got a an image or something like that that has a description. In that description somewhere is going to be a link to who that person is or something like that. It just helps. So
Show real fun.
I don't.
No, okay.
Yeah.
But you've got a website with active stuff on it, so you know. Showreel Finder was a service where you could put your clips in. I used it a lot when my career for art direction, because there were a lot of commercials and things, and actually got a job in Vietnam through Showreel Finder.
Oh yeah.
And again, you pay an annual fee and you can put your clips in, depending on how many clips you pay accordingly. But it's a visual thing. It's good for cinematographers, designers, makeup if you like. Showreelfinder.com.au. Start off down the road at Bondi. It's a really good service.
Yeah, showreels are really important to have, I think, depending on...
If you've got a website while you're doing the same things.
Yeah. I just wanted to talk a bit about, so everyone who works in film is a little bit mad. You kind of have to be. So being all budding filmmakers, I'm assuming, since you're taking this course, something you need to be aware of is, when it comes to things like home-life balance, is that you won't have any. The hours can be completely insane in film world. So all of my friends and family are now aware that whenever I'm on a film job, I'm practically uncontactable. I'm never going to be able to tell them exactly what time I'm going to finish on any particular day. So, you know, if they would like, let's go out for dinner. And I go, okay, well, my wrap is meant to be 6 p.m., but it might be 10 p.m. or anywhere in between. I have no idea. So that kind of thing it's tricky to do. So I feel like when I say everyone who works in film is a bit mad, it's because you kind of have to be. You have to be insanely passionate about film to want to work in film and still stay in it. You know, so anybody that comes out of this and sort of thinks it's a really easy 9-to-5 job with guaranteed income is probably a bit silly. And if you think that, then, you know, good luck to you, but you're going to get a rude awakening. So for me, like I also have a 9-year-old son and I've got 2 stepdaughters. It is really, really difficult to be in film and have small children as well. I remember when I was pregnant, one of my makeup friends immediately said, "Oh, you're pregnant? Oh, well, you're going to have to stop working in film then. You'll have to do bridal or something." I was like, "Excuse me, what?" I'm very stubborn, so that almost made it even harder for me to consider any other career. But yeah, make sure you've got lots of support around you, especially if you are at any point wanting to have a long-term relationship, children, pets, anything. You kind of need to have support around you to be able to do any of that when you work in film. If you are lucky enough to end up working constantly and being on film after film. It's not the world's friendliest profession for anyone looking to have a really nice work-life balance. But it is really fun, and everybody you meet goes, "Wow, that's so interesting. Tell me about your career." And I guarantee that no one says that to an accountant. So there you go. I want to show you, before I start moving into how I became a producer, I'm going to play you the Talk to Me trailer because it's fun. Let's do this, just in case anyone hasn't seen it.
Have you seen the group chat? You're doing it again tonight? No, please. It's my mom's remembering this day. I just want to forget about it. Who's up? Albert.
Cannot go for more than 90 seconds. I'm not clear.
What happens after 90 seconds?
Don't want to stay. Light the candle to open the door. Blow it out to close it. Put your hand on it. Now say, talk to me.
Talk to me. did the hand feel like?
So amazing. I could see and feel everything you inside. So my mom, she was trying to reach out. I'm here. Still been saying stuff.
You've been saying stuff.
I don't think I can do it, but we didn't have it.
Oh my God, they followed us.
I like it.
They're not gonna stop us. They're not gonna stop.
They like you.
That was a really fun one to work on. So, okay, getting this up and ready to go. So producing, I started producing a couple of short films right before the pandemic, actually. And then it sort of got put on hold over the pandemic because makeup stuff was happening, and I didn't really have any projects sort of floating around. But I've had a bunch of people tell me over the years that I should produce, mostly because I have a bit of a head for numbers and spreadsheets, and I'm quite organised. So I think that's sort of two things that producers need to be: is a bit of a people person and be able to talk to people, and also love spreadsheets, basically, because that's all they do is organising. Yeah, organising and talking to people. So the opportunity came up last year for me to produce my first feature film, which I leapt on. Hang on, I'm going to turn, quit my WhatsApp that keeps trying to talk to me. So it was a pretty amazing opportunity. My very first thing that I produced was a short film called Over the Edge, and the writer-director of that was going to be producing and directing a film called Resonance, which is still in post-production, but I have a very rough trailer that I'm going to be able to show you. And he was also producing and directing a film immediately following it called It Will Find You. So because he was directing in both of them, he needed another producer that was just going to produce and be sort of the boots on the ground person. And thankfully, he asked me.
This is someone you'd worked with previously?
Yeah, I'd worked with him for years in a makeup sense, but he'd also, I produced a short film that he wrote and directed. So he knew that I had the right kind of skills to be able to jump into it, and he's been pushing me for years. So this is Enzo Tedeschi, who owns Dead House Films, which I now work with as well. He's been pushing me for years to produce because he said I was a bit wasted in makeup.
So this is evidence of networking and rapport and communication and also being in the zone. You working together. They know you know your work's self-evident and so on.
Yeah.
Networking.
And I think one of the reasons why my hair and makeup career sort of progressed to me being a head of department quite quickly, was a lot quicker than most people. So some of the people that I was had the same graduating year as me were still doing assisting jobs, and I was doing my first head of department indie features. And part of that was being able to be really good at budgeting, scheduling, all of the stuff that a head of department actually needs to do. And little did I know that was just my producer brain kicking in way back then. So, hang on, I'm just getting my notes. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to play you this. This is It Will Find You, which is actually the second film that I shot as a producer, but it was released first. So the other one is a sci-fi, and we've got over 300 visual effects shots in it, so it is still in post-production. But It Will Find You is an Indigenous creature horror feature, and it was selected for Cinefest Oz, South by Southwest Sydney, and also Brisbane International Film Festival, which is coming up in a few weeks. And we're still chasing an international festival, but very much hoping that will come. And it's going to be released theatrically in March next year by Umbrella Entertainment, who are our Australia, New Zealand distributors. So this trailer is not yet released at all, and it is in fact a sales trailer rather than the theatrical trailer, so it's got some spoilery bits in it.
Would this be like a pitch?
This isn't a pitch, this is the trailer that we use to show different territories that we're trying to sell to. So at the moment we're chasing a North American sale. We've sold to Russia, we've sold to the Philippines, we've sold to Hungary. We're chasing North America, UK, all of those kinds of things. So a sales trailer tends to be a little bit more spoilery than a theatrical trailer because they want to see all the exciting, gory bits in it that would otherwise be like, oh, that person dies. You wouldn't put that in a normal trailer. I'm going to show you this one because it's got the jump scares and the kills in it, which is exciting. No, I don't want to do that.
It was my mom's. She died when I was a baby. Last night I met someone who also recognized it.
You're not supposed to wear that.
You know what it means?
Is Camilloy for evil spirits, sometimes known as the red-eyed demon. Wait, I didn't know, Mark. It was there is nothing there.
Seen your blood, so now you've got to pay the price. Only death for you. You touch that stone, can you cut his?
Everyone around me is dying. It's up to me.
Death is coming. It will find you.
Yay. So, pretty proud of that one.
Hold the final credit there and see your credit
Yeah.
just on that last frame.
Let me go.
So there you go. So you're in there, I can see you.
Yeah, I'm here. Also Moonlight Fox, that's my production company that I created a couple of years ago. Sorry. Oh God, we've got a very busy year next year coming up, so you never know. But I'm now also a part owner of Dead House Films. So Dead House is Enzo Tedeschi's company. He founded it 15 years ago or something like that. And we have also created a company that is for non-genre films, because we've got a few of those on the slate, that is Fox House.
I have a question on that, but you answered it already. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, so obviously, Enzo Tedeschi, his first film that he made was a found footage horror called The Tunnel. We have a sequel in development, so that's very exciting.
Like Blair Witch.
Yeah, like Blair Witch. But it's all about the tunnels that are underneath Sydney trains, like under Central, and there's a creature down there that kills people, and yes, it's all very creepy. Having been down in those tunnels myself, I can tell you they are very, very creepy. They actually shot a whole bunch of it down there for the first one, and they're not allowed to anymore, so we're going to have to build a set for this one, but that's fine.
What do you mean by non-genre film?
Okay, so genre films tend to be horror, sci-fi, thriller, that kind of thing. That's just what they call those types of films. They call them genre films. And often if you are known for making horror films, for instance, you kind of get stuck in that little loop. So for us, we've quite deliberately got a few films that we're trying to get up that aren't genre films. Like we've got a comedy, we've got a rom-com, for instance. But to be able to have that under a separate banner just makes it a little bit cleaner, so that everyone knows, you know, Dead House, like the name sort of speaks for itself, that's going to be the genre kind of thing.
This, you've got quite a formidable cast there. You've got Bad Boy Bubby, and you've got Luke Ford, you've got, you know, and all that. What sort of budget overall can you reveal that?
I can reveal it. This was phenomenally low.
Yeah.
So it was only 1.5 mil.
It's almost impossible.
Almost impossible. Considering we have a 7-foot practical creature that Odd Studio built, that was 10% of our budget just on that. Yeah, so we pulled a lot of favours. This did not, and the reason the budget was so low is because we did not get Screen Australia financing.
No.
So, so Chris Broadbent was the writer and co-director of it. He's Indigenous, and obviously the story has a lot of Indigenous stuff in it. He originally wanted Enzo to direct it because he's never directed anything before. But Enzo said he can't because he's Italian. He can't really direct an Indigenous feature. So it was actually Screen Australia's suggestion that they co-direct so that Enzo could mentor
That's unusual
him.
to see two directors on that project. So
Yeah.
That's why that came out. That's good.
Yeah, very unusual. But I think when they brought me on as a producer, that was probably really helpful for them because things like getting the crew together, I managed to get everyone to work at award rates, which is like they're very low. So most of the time, seasoned professionals do not want to work for that.
These are the MEAA rates. Some of those have been in my classes previously. I would have shown you those. The low rates that allow you to make low budget films.
Yeah.
Without being illegal.
Yeah. But so we had crew members that left higher paying jobs to come and work on my film, mostly because they like me.
Did you do any prosthetics yourself?
I didn't have time. I did jump on the makeup truck and muck in and help every now and then, but I very, very quickly realised I can't do makeup and producing. Yeah, and especially because on this one, because the budget was so low, I had very little help in the production department. There was myself and a coordinator, and that was it. So not only was I the producer, that also meant that I was the line producer, the production manager.
And doing call sheets at night.
And yes, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. So 1.5 is very, very low budget. Anything that's sort of 5 mil and under, it tends to be low budget filmmaking. It's bordering on micro budget. It's bordering on impossible. So when we were going for Screen Australia funding, one of the reasons that they gave that they said no was because of the Indigenous factor. Our writer was from a Tasmanian mob. The creature was inspired by a Northern Territory mob, like Dreamtime creature, and the story was being shot in Gadigal land, but about the Gamilaroi people. So it was they just said they weren't sure about how that was going to go, and so turned us down for financing. So yeah.
When you applied for Screen Australia funding, So do they sit down and they have a chat with you afterwards, being like, this is how you should amend your film in order to maybe get funding in the future, or any sort of like...
They do give feedback. It's not always super detailed, but they will give it. Usually it's, they'll just email it through to you, but you sit down with them before you actually apply and you tell them everything. They give you ideas and tips. So the thing with Screen Australia, you can only apply twice and then you're out with the same project. So this film, they did try and apply twice and got knocked back twice. So
Any script development, did Screen New South Wales come up for script development or any of that?
no, they didn't get any development funding, but they had some private finance for development.
Right.
So we did actually shoot a proof of concept short,
Yep.
which was in aid of us trying to get more finance.
Teaser trailer, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a standalone, it worked as a standalone short, but it was in fact essentially the first part of the film that they actually shot. So we did go back and reshoot it because we had more budget, it was going to be much better, but essentially it was the same like first part of the script in the...
So the 1.5 is essentially private equity, is that
Yeah.
how it worked?
Yeah, so it's private equity plus the producer's offset. So the producer's offset is a government grant that if you have a theatrical film, it will give you back 40% of your qualifying production expenses. It's called QUAPE. The great thing about that is because it's a government grant and it's a guaranteed thing, it's a very, very safe thing to lend against. So that's basically the only way that indie films can get made, is that they get a sign-off from Screen Australia to say, yes, you're going to get the 40% theatrical grant. Then they'll take that certificate off to a lender. We used Mind the Gap.
Yep.
And then they will loan you.
Yeah.
So they'll loan you that amount, so you can use that in the making of the film, and then the lender gets the grant back from the government. So basically 40% of our budget was made up of that, and then the rest...
40% gets whittled down, you wind up with about 33 or something, don't you?
Yeah, because they never lend the full amount. We were lucky enough to have a few pre-sales, which we also lent against. So when I mentioned that we've already sold to Russia, the Philippines and Hungary, those three places were our pre-sales because we've only just started the process of trying to get sales going.
Did you have a sales agent to do that?
Yep, so we had Alliance Media Partners, or AMP. They're our international sales agent. They're based in the UK. Apparently it is pretty unheard of these days to get pre-sales, which is great. What's that done? Oh, yeah, so that was awesome because pre-sales, they give you a deposit of the amount, but they don't actually pay the whole thing until you've completed the film and delivered it. But because it's contracted in, you can also lend against a pre-sale. So that helped.
Mind the Gap, come on that, get on that.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, the rest of it was private equity, which is essentially people with deep pockets who have other friends with deep pockets who we begged and pleaded, and they all gave over little amounts. So if for something this small budget, it's not uncommon to have something like, I think we have 18 executive producers listed or something stupid. It's because every single person who's given money gets an executive producer credit, even if they're only kicking in 50 grand, 100 grand or whatever here and there. And then all of your distributors and sales agents all get credits. So we've got like 4 people from Umbrella and 4 people from AMP. So it starts to become ridiculous, and you quickly realize that an executive producer credit tends to be a bit worthless. It just means that they've assisted in some way with financing the project.
It's packaging, basically, packaging finance together.
Yeah, yeah. We're right in the thick of stuff with this in terms of stuff like marketing. I'll show you our poster. Yes, we love a poster. So these were the 2 short films that I produced originally before the pandemic happened, which was kind of fun. Over the Edge was my very first one, which yes also has Bad Boy Bobby in it. We love Nicholas. This is a mock-up sort of thing for Resonance, which is the sci-fi that's still in post-production, which I'm going to show you a trailer for. It is rough and it doesn't have final VFX and stuff in it, but you'll get the gist. And this is our poster for It Will Find You, which is very cool.
Who did you post this?
Umbrella did that one.
Umbrella, yeah.
Yeah.
Just explain that the distributors do the P&A. I'll explain to you what P&A is now. So.
Yeah, so any of your print and advertising, that kind of thing. So when a distributor like Umbrella, so they're an Australian New Zealand distributor, they'll come on board the film and give you what's called an MG, which is a minimum guarantee. It's money that they'll kick in to help with making the film, and that money is basically what they're guaranteeing that you can get, but then they've got to recoup it as well in terms of their own marketing costs. But then they'll take over, and anything to do with, posters, billboards, trailers on different streaming platforms, anything on the internet.
It used to be called P&A, prints and advertising, where we did film prints, but now it's digital. But it's all making sure all the materials that go out are in the right sort of formats and things for TV or for cinema or for YouTube, whatever it goes.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah. So we had someone that we use a lot for our posters, who's actually really good. But Umbrella wanted to use their person just because then they can sort of guarantee that they get exactly what they like, and we all sort of talk it through, and we have a lot of say over how the poster is, what images they use, that kind of thing, or even down to like colouring and stuff like that. The credit block at the back, at the base, for instance, like show you just how many bloody executive producers we have. So we've got like all of the these two lines are basically executive producers. But yes, so it is very cool, and it's almost impossible to read when there's that many of them, but I will. So in terms of things like marketing for this, we have a whole marketing plan that's rolling out slowly. So we've got a whole bunch of social media clips, which we haven't released yet, which are things like cutesy, that we're behind the scenes interviews with cast, asking them things like, what would be your preferred weapon against the creature. We have things like, who do you think would the creature kill fastest out of Chris and Enzo, the co-directors, little cute things like that. And also the obvious normal behind the scenes kind of questions that you ask them, like what drew you to the film and that kind of thing. We were really, really lucky to get the cast that we did. So Kyla Day, her performance is amazing. And Territory came out as we were filming, and that got #1 around the world for multiple weeks. So it definitely raised her profile. Yeah.
Are you worried that that film, people might think it's a copy of?
So what's the actual question?
Sorry?
Is it an Indigenous one?
Oh, the Mugai?
Yeah.
It's a really different film. Yeah, like the storylines are quite different. And we're hoping we do better than the Mugai because it didn't do very well. Our theatrical release that we've got is still going to be a limited one, so it will probably mean things like the Ritz, the Dendy, those kinds of cinemas.
Art house.
Art house, yes, small indie. But generally speaking, an interesting thing to note is that almost never will a production make back their budget in Australia or locally. They're making their money overseas because we have a very small population and not enough people go to the cinema every day. So even Talk to Me, for instance, I think in Australia only did about 3 million or so.
So that's pretty terrific. That's
really, really good.
1.5 regarded as a good return.
Yeah.
Office here, most of which gets gouged by the distributors and the exhibitors.
Yeah.
That's the cinemas and the distributors.
What about bringing it back?
I'm not sure what that's at. It certainly would have made its budget back. But for instance, Talk to Me, that had a $4.5 million budget, so it's still low budget. It made 92 million at the box office, but only 2 or 3 or something was Australia. So they didn't make back their budget here. It was definitely overseas. And the same is true of pretty much any film that is made in Australia. You just assume that your money's coming from overseas. I might just play you the trailer for Resonance. So this is a very different film. It's a sci-fi, more like a character drama with sci-fi and time travel elements to it. But as I said, this is a rough trailer and we don't have the final VFX in it. But this is quite cool because we have our lead actress, her name is Barbara Bingham. And in this film, she plays herself, but also plays her 25-year-old great-grandmother. And we're using a digital de-aging to make it work. So something that we would never have dared to do on this budget, which is this is also really low, it's only about the 1 million mark, wouldn't have been possible without some of the tools that you have these days in terms of VFX. Yeah?
Do you use a lot of AI?
This doesn't use AI in the sense that it's generating anything, but it is using AI in a way to help with mapping stuff in visual effects land. So it's just speeding up the process. Yeah? Oh, so there's that hand.
Oh, sorry.
I can barely see. Yeah. Okay, I'll play this for you.
I found something in the
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, that's what we
Internet down
Kick
here.
it, it's out
family
again.
grandfather.
It's buffering.
I found something in the family grandfather portrait. There's a label with my name on it. Ah, mysterious Amelia. You know about her.
Nothing around here. The vanishing heiress. Some say she ran off with a lover, others think it was foul play.
And today's date.
Which year?
This year. There are forces in the universe that defy all human comprehension. Some things simply must not.
You're a child playing with forces beyond your comprehension, Clark.
I can't do it alone.
So that last shot at the balcony, that's our temp VFX, but that's the same actress playing her and her 25-year-old great-grandmother, which was really difficult to actually do practically. Yeah, not something you can do with makeup. You can't de-age someone that much. But we had a stand-in body double and a wig, and then basically they face replaced that with her.
All on $1 million budget.
All on $1 million
I can't
budget.
believe this.
So we have more than 300 visual effects shots that we're getting through, which is a lot. Like that's a huge amount. I think the first Lord of the Rings film, or the last one, I think had 800 shots or something. So, yeah. To put that in. Yeah.
Was that the actor that's in all the
No, she's in one of the Friday the 13th films, and she's been in a bunch of other. She was in like Hawaii 5-0 and stuff. She used to live in America, but yeah, she's pretty cool.
So you're not going for the mid-Pacific accents or anything, you're just sticking in the native voices, so to speak? Or?
Yeah, because she can't do an Australian accent. We've tried. It's awful. So
No, right.
So anytime, because we've cast her in a few things, and she's in one of the films that I've got in development, which is actually a feature version of the first short film that I did. So she's in that, and we quite deliberately made her American because she just can't do an Australian accent to save her life.
Fine, yeah.
It is one of the more difficult accents to do, I believe. Cool. So that's stuff if we want to open things up to questions, which might help if I can see.
Yes, I was just about to do that for you, so just tell me.
Can we just hand the mic around? Whoever's going to ask.
My name is Nick, so whoever's got a question, I can knock the mic to you.
Nick, former student.
I have a question.
just because you were talking about casting, what do you look for when you are casting? Are you looking for big names or just upcoming talent? How do you?
It depends on the project. So a lot of the time for instance, in the horror space, you don't tend to put name people in horror films because it can actually drag the audience out of the fear of it. So horror is one of the best low budget things for indie filmmakers to make because they don't need big cast. Because casting bigger names costs a lot of money unless you have amazing favors. So we've got the film that I was just talking about that we have in development at the moment. We are chasing named cast for that. So Barbara, who was in that other one, she's our lead cast member, but because she's the not very well-known person, to be able to attract the finance that we need for that, that's going to be around the $6 million mark, which is obviously quite a big jump up. But to attract that kind of finance, we need named people in it. So it all depends on the project. We've got, so Crash Out, which is Nick's film that I'm developing. So we're going to shoot that early next year. And he's not so much looking for names, but more performance. So people that are up and coming, really, really good performers. Because that's a really low budget level as well. And so you just can't really afford named cast until you start getting up into the many more millions range. If that sort of vaguely answers that question.
My question is,
Big voice.
Hello?
Big voice, yeah.
Oh, my question is, what is your from your makeup days, what is your longest makeup session, and or how many people have you had at once to help somebody have makeup?
It was probably that demon from Talk to Me. So that, I don't think I've done one makeup that's been longer than 6 hours before. And yeah, so that was a 6-hour makeup and 4 people working on it at once. I've certainly done makeups for longer than 6 hours straight in a row before. So when I was working on the latest Thor movie, so Thor Love and Thunder, the first couple of weeks of that, we were on the prosthetics team, we were doing the blue aliens that are called INDconn. So we would start at 3 a.m. and we would do INDconn back to back. So it was more than one of them at a time, but it was like a production line of just person after person. And I think we were doing about 8 hours of makeup before we'd actually stop for breakfast. So we just do that, work straight from 3 a.m. for 8 hours, and then finally collapse in a heap. And then keep going until we finished our 16, 17-hour days. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Well, over there.
Yeah. You were talking a lot about finding funding for films. How do you feel about crowdfunding for smaller projects like that?
I think it's a brilliant thing to do. And it's actually something that we're discussing, myself and my producing partner, and so we're actually chatting about that for a few projects and thinking that that might be a good way forward. So especially for a lower budget thing, if you can crowdfund your way to any amount of money, the good thing about that is it's then not recoupable, which means that you haven't had someone, like if you manage to get 50 grand together through crowdfunding and 50 grand through private finance, that financier who's given you 50 grand has to get that money back somehow. Whereas if you crowdfunded 50 grand, that's your free money, you get to keep it. So it takes a lot less time to get into profit, if that makes sense. So when you sell your film, everyone that's put money in has to get their money back before you make a cent. So if you've managed to crowdfund something, that is fantastic. My only thing is that I haven't heard of that many crowdfunding campaigns that actually manage to get a really decent amount of money. And if you consider that when I'm talking about budgets like 1 million or 1.5 million as being barely possible to make, anything less than that, and you're really running the risk of not being able to pay anyone or not being able to feed anyone. I did a panel at South by Southwest Sydney, which was about indie horror filmmaking. And there was a person on there, what was her name? Jill. She's just produced a film that won the Audience Award, and I've forgotten the name of it. It's another like found footage horror film. She made it on 70 grand, and I have no idea how. I like genuinely don't know how. Our catering bill for It Will Find You was 64 grand, for instance. So, and that was a 4-week shoot with a pretty smallish group. So yeah, anyone that can make something like that.
What was it for, about 30?
Yeah.
30 odd people? Yeah.
Yeah, so all props to her. But yeah, it's definitely something that I think should be a first step if you don't know anyone that happens to be really rich and wants to fling their money at film projects, because it's honestly would be the most terrible investment to make ever. If you ever win the lottery, don't invest in film. Unless it's one of mine, please invest in mine. But yeah, so crowdfunding is a really good way. It's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than people think. You've got to spend hours and hours on it, every day, every week.
And you've got to stay in touch. Could you explain that you need to manage your crowdfunding?
Yeah. So you do. You need to have really good rewards that make sense, and you need to also assume that if you're not pushing it out really widely, then the only people that are going to see it are your friends and family on social media. And unless they all have 10 grand each or something to chuck into a project, you're not going to get very far. That makes sense?
Yeah, you really do need a pre-existing fan base.
Yes.
Over here, Nick.
Would you be able to elaborate further on what it actually means to lend against, and how you find distributors, and how you actually apply for funding in the first place, the different bodies that you can apply funding through, etc.?
Yep. Okay. So start with distributors, because generally speaking, if you're going to go to somewhere like Screen Australia, Screen New South Wales, or whatever, you have to have your distributor on board first. So there's a few distributors, and you have to have your Australian, New Zealand distributor on board first, is what I should say. It can be really difficult to get a distributor on board if you don't already have a relationship with them. But if your project is really strong, they're going to pay attention. So one of the best, obviously you need to have a really, really, really good script. So that's step one, that's what they would...
Killer script.
Killer script. You need to have an amazing pitch deck. Now, a pitch deck is a visual document that describes the film, so it's got a synopsis of the film. It's also got tonal references, might reference other films that it's going to be like tonally, or it might have proposed cast in it. It's meant to be a really, really slick way for someone to know what the hell your script is about without having to read the script. Because what you're going to do is you'd send them that, and then they ask whether they want to read the script or not based on that document. They can be really hard to put together, but this is one of the ways that AI's actually become really good, is that sometimes you can generate images for your pitch deck that you wouldn't be able to just find otherwise. So that can be really helpful. But if your script is not good, you won't get a distributor on board. That's just step one. So the other thing is that generally speaking, they like to see experience. So if you're a writer-director, for instance, most of the time, and I'm going to explain a really standout exception in a minute, most of the time, if you've not done a short film, they can see no evidence that you're going to be able to direct something, for instance. So that's always my thing that I will tell everyone to do, is that if you've got a feature film that you want to get made at some point, make a short film first, or make something first that you're going to be able to point to as evidence of your experience. So one exception of that is the film that I'm producing that's in development at the moment, Crash Out, is by a young guy named Nick Annis. So he is a first-time feature director. He's never directed before. He's also never directed a short film before. But the script is strong enough that we've got Umbrella on board as his theatrical, and not just on board to release it to a streamer or something, they're going to release it theatrically. So that's pretty unheard of, and even we're surprised. but
But because the script is so strong and it's instantly on the page marketable, and they can see that they will be able to make money from it, that's why they've been able to come on board. So distribution is first. Then when it comes to things like Screen Australia, Screen New South Wales, the process for applying for production funding is huge, and it takes a lot of work. So it's not just, here's my script, give me money please. You have to have a marketing plan. You have to have prove that you can show your pathway to audience, is what they call it. The way that you can actually, you're going to get your audience in front of screens to watch your film. You've got to have, you know, decent casts that are sort of proposed or on board. Yeah, you need to have things like what's called a completion guarantee, which is an insurance policy made against your films. You have to pay a percentage of your total film budget to a completion guarantor. And if something happens, like your director gets hit by a bus, they will guarantee that they will get the film finished for you.
There's companies that do it. Film Finance is the main one, and but there's about 3% of people below line,
Yeah.
roughly.
Yeah, which is, you know, it's really steep when you think about, like, it's a lot of money to pay for an insurance policy, essentially. But yeah, in terms of getting, lending against things, what that essentially means is that if you know that your film is going to be released theatrically, you know that you're going to get the producer's offset. So because that is a government grant and it's really guaranteed, so once you can say, yes, I'm going to get that, it's guaranteed. So you can go, there are people that are called gap lenders. So Mind the Gap is one example of them. That's who we use, and that's who we've got a good relationship with. Basically, they go through the same kind of qualifying process that Screen Australia would on your project. So they don't just go, yeah, well, we'll give you the money, but they'll read the script, they'll look at the pitch deck, they'll look at who's on board, they'll look at who the director is, who are the producers, is the team experienced, who's the DOP, all of that kind of stuff. And if they think the project is viable, then they'll go, yeah, okay, we'll lend against that, here you go, here's your money.
They have the right to reject people on your crew list as well.
Yeah.
And I've been on a film when the completion guarantors come in, it's a very ugly place to be.
Yeah.
And they come in wading their boots around and firing people, all sorts of fun things.
Yeah.
It's their money.
It's essentially, you have to imagine that anybody that is putting money into your film is going to want to have a say over some part of it. So that's when it gets difficult. If you've got Screen Australia on board, for instance, you know, they might be insisting that you have a certain amount of diversity across your cast and crew and that kind of thing. And that's, like, it's not always easy to achieve. Yeah. I'm trying to think if that answered your question or if I've just gone rambling again.
Taking it back even a step further, as a producer, how would you find that killer script? Are you doing that through networking, through talking to writers at industry events? Do you accept submissions?
Yeah, well, any and all of the above. So
Everybody, contact her right now.
So since I've started producing, it is a bit like there's some sort of magic switch that's happened in the industry, and I now get people just cold sending me scripts and being like, please read my script and have a look. Which, you know, if it looks interesting and sounds like something that would be a fit, I will pretty much always read them. And yeah, it's just whether or not it works with what we've got coming up in the slate and that kind of thing. But otherwise, so for instance, I'm writing a script myself for an idea that I had years and years ago. It's actually an extension of my extension to English major work that I did 20 years ago when I was in high school, which is horrifying to say 20 years ago, but it was. But yeah, so sometimes a producer might come up with a script idea, sometimes a writer will approach them directly with a script. A lot of the time it's, you know, people that are in your network already will already have a script or have an idea and sort of go, cool, that looks great, or it needs work, let's develop it more. Myself and Enzo, we've got like something like 20 ideas at various stages of development. There's sort of 6 features that are fully scripted, and relatively ready to go, and then the rest of them might be that they've got a one page, or they've got a full treatment, or it's just, you know, 3 lines of an idea that someone scribbled down on a napkin at some point. And they're scripts that are coming from all over the place, so they're not just all Enzo's or my ideas or anything like that. But yeah, it does seem like a lot of the time people will approach us and basically go, here, I have this script, can you produce it for me? Nick was one of those people that, like, he approached me because he was actually he was acting in the very first thing that I produced, interestingly enough, when he was 14 or something. So he approached me, but he'd also done so much of the work already. He'd already done a pitch deck, he'd already crowdfunded himself some of the funding, he'd done a whole lot of work. Often what happens is people will go, I have this script, help. And then the producer would take that on and be expected to do all of the rest of it. But yeah, it's a lot of work. Sometimes it can take something from like 2 to 7 years to get a project from script up and running to actually filming it. That's not an unusual timeline. If it happens faster than that, which Nick's will, then that's awesome, basically.
I'll just jump in quickly. Screen Australia quantifies it as a feature project 9 years from start to scratch. That's pay do.
Yeah.
That's the kind of the lifespan that you're looking at. But so obviously you're overlapping projects.
Yeah.
Just one other question, provided if we've heard there. Are you building relationships with the streamers yet, like Netflix and the others? They're starting to, become their primary producers now, aren't they?
They are, and so we haven't really started that journey yet, but we have a couple of projects in the wings that we think will be direct to streamer. So that's going to happen. So we've got a couple of them are documentaries as well. So we're sort of trying to aim for, Stan or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why we do things like, there's a yearly networking event that SPA does, so Screen Producers Australia, called Screen Forever. It's up on the Gold Coast. We went this year. It is the most exhausting week of your life, because essentially what it is you're setting up constant little pitch meetings to everyone that's going, and people can set them up with you as well. And so, you're doing these 15-minute windows. It's almost like speed dating, but for projects. So you come out of it completely brain dead and exhausted. But I did a pitching session with Stan to find out what they were after. So I've now got their contact details and everything, and know the kind of projects that they're looking for, which is why one of them that's on our slate, we're thinking for them, because it's a bit male-skewed crime, which is what they seem to be really after. But yeah, I think we sort of aim first for theatrically, and then see where things land.
Make a splash theatrically, and then of course you build relationships in your second tiers of distribution and so on. Just one quick thing, just that Helen mentioned about having pre-sales. The pre-sale works on territories. It's called ANZ, Australia and New Zealand, and that Screen Oz won't fund you until you've got an ANZ distribution guarantee. And the other one's called ROW, Rest of the World, and that can be individual territories, Canada, America, Europe, and what have you. But that's why you have the sales agents and distributors, and that's what they do. And so you've got to get your heads around those equations. You've got to learn what these people do and how they fit into the business. Sorry, Nick, there was, I think, another question.
That's okay. I was actually a little bit built on that, because you mentioned that you had, was it Russia or as pre-sales early. What was that like? How did you pitch to them, and what connected with them?
So that, I'll be speaking for other people, because I came on after they'd already got those pre-sales. But that was just based on the script. So they hadn't even, we hadn't even shot a proof of concept when they got Russia on board. And that was a big one. That was the largest pre-sale that we had. They have turned out to be the most annoying of all the pre-sales, and are, so we were very close to getting all legal up on them for a minute there when we delivered the film, and they still haven't paid. But anyway, that's a whole separate story. The Russians are not,
Were they involved in, like, did they?
No, not so much. But what happens when you have a pre-sale or even a sale after the fact, you're basically handing over a lot of rights to your film. So they're able to dub it in another language. They're able to remove things that in case that they have cultural sensitivities around specific stuff. The amount that you have to actually deliver for an international sales agent to make any sale is huge. It's not just like a thumb drive with the film on it. You have to have all of the subtitle tracks. You have to have, all the WAR files so that they can go in and pick apart your film. Generally speaking, they're not going to do huge amounts, but yeah,
it means extensive post-production scripts as well with time codes so they can do dubbings and things. This is really not just making a film and handing it over, it's a lot of stuff. Can you explain trailers and who cuts them and how they work for them?
Yeah, so trailers, that's the other thing they can do, is they can cut their own trailers if they want. So for us in this particular film, our creature film, the trailer that I showed you, our editor cut that. But it's not unusual for the distributors to get their own trailer on board. They liked the trailer that Dan, our editor, put together. So that sort of worked for everyone. Basically, we had to get things signed off by everyone. So anytime we had a piece of what's called key art, which is like your, poster images or any images that are going to go out on social media or your trailer, you have to put those together and then present it to your ANZ distributor and present it to your international sales agent and get their tick of approval. And they'll come back with notes and go, no, cut this down, do this, do this, do this. And so for things like getting pre-sales, the hardest part is getting the international sales agent, because it's the same kind of process as you would like getting a distributor here. You have to convince them that the project is amazing when you don't yet have anything shot. From there, it's up to them to go and get the pre-sales and stuff like that, and then sell them.
Will you have to travel to the American film market yourself, or TIFF, or somewhere like TV or something like that?
I mean, we're not going to go to AFM. So they're going to be over there for us, and so will Umbrella. So Umbrella's going to be, so for Crash Out, for instance, that next film that he's the first time director, Umbrella, they've come on board and they want to help us get the sales.
They'll be selling that, they'll be also pushing that for pre-sales and selling yours at the same time. And so
it's a huge process, and that's the thing as well with trying to get an international sales agent on. There's something like 4 or 5 film markets across the year, and generally speaking, like, they might spend a month in the lead up to one of them working their asses off to get contacts and all of that kind of thing, and then in the month after it they're doing follow-ups and that kind of thing. So unless you manage to time sending your script to one of these people really well so that they're not actually busy and do have time to read it, it's really difficult to get one on board. So I think in the case of It Will Find You, the monster film, we got lucky with the timing and lucky in terms of the script was really solid. So,
speaking of time, last questions or questions, Nick, there's somebody there beside you? We're just trying to get time here.
Hi there. Out of all the projects you've worked on as makeup artist and producer, which one would you say was your favorite to work on and why?
Okay, I'm going to do 2 separate things because makeup-wise, it's very different. I think Thor was probably one of my favorite makeup jobs to work on, just because we got to do so many different kinds of makeup. I was only what's called an additional makeup artist, so I wasn't on the main team. I was brought in to help with all the extra characters and stuff like that. But because it was so huge, I was on it for 6 months straight, but being paid a day rate, which is also great.
Yeah.
Rather than a weekly rate. So that was tops. That got me out of debt for a while. But yeah, because we had, like, there were prosthetics, there was body painting, there was really elaborate wigs, there was really fun, like, god makeups and stuff like that. It just sort of stretched every muscle. So I think that's probably my favorite makeup job to work on. Producing wise, I mean, I haven't really done that many, but actually my first project that I produced was nuts because it was a short film. We only had 25 grand, which is a tiny amount for a short film, and we had child actors, a gun, a cat, and a hybrid human-cat makeup and animatronic tail. So somehow we did all of that on 25 grand. I still don't know how, even though I did all the budgeting and money stuff. So I think just for nostalgia value, that's probably my favorite producing project to work on so far, just because it really threw me in the deep end for how to actually get things done.
Which raises the final thing, but how expensive is this very specialised prosthetic makeup? It's
very, very
expensive. A little vial of blood costs $50 or something like that.
Yeah, the glues that we use, so I was on Voltron earlier in the year and doing prosthetics, and the glues that we're using, each glue is like in a bottle that's that big, it's $500. Yeah. So on that, for a week that I was on that, I probably went through half of that glue just in that. So makeup is very expensive to get into, and prosthetics cost a lot of money.
That's the glue that doesn't rip the face off the actor at the end of the day.
Yeah, and there's a good reason why our creature suit for It Will Find You was 10% of our budget, and that was mates rates from On Studio, because that's incredibly cheap, but it's still, there's 150 grand right there just on one creature that was only on 6 days of the entire production.
Okay, so the last question, up the back there behind you, Nick. Lachlan up the back there.
You mentioned briefly about being in talks with Netflix and streaming networks about distribution. You hear a lot of stories about films in the 90s and 2000s getting a second life when it comes to DVD and VHS resale. Would it be a similar situation if Netflix was to say pick up Mugai?
Yep.
Would the success be translated to you or directly to the distribution company?
Some of all. So basically, when you have a distribution company on board, they're going to take a cut of anything that, any amount of profit that the film gets into. So that will include something like a Netflix sale. For instance, one of Enzo's films, The Tunnel, it last year got onto a horror streaming platform called Shudder. It ended up being the most streamed catalogue title on there, but that was, 15 years after it was made or something. So money is still coming in for projects that get made that far back, and usually it's because they then get a deal with a streamer. And it's really difficult to actually figure out, what, like in terms of how much money Netflix will actually make out of taking a film and putting it on Netflix, because they don't really release their, they don't release like their viewership for each title or anything like that. But basically they usually do a deal that will be over a few years or something like that, and will have a monetary value put on it. And then your sales agent or distributor, whoever's helped you with that deal, will have their cut, like might be 15% that they'll take straight away, and then the rest sort of gets flowed through. If you've already knocked off your finance, like any finance that you've had to pay back for your film, and you're in profit, what tends to happen is profit gets split 50-50. So 50% of it is the producer's net profits, and 50% of it is the distributor's, the investor's share of profits. So it gets split like that, and then depending on how much money each investor has put into the film as a percentage, that's what their percentage flows down to. So it's called a waterfall, when you get money that comes in at the top and it gets distributed between all of the
recoupment waterfall, otherwise known as snouts in the trough.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Snouts closer to the where it comes in,
Yeah.
And just with the producer's percentage, if your actors have got percentage, it comes out of the producer's percentage.
Yes, yeah, so that's really common as well. For It Will Find You, obviously we had a really tiny budget and we've got a couple of pretty cool names on there, like Aaron Pedersen and stuff like that. Almost all of them have some sort of back end kick in. So they get it's called points, but what it essentially means is a percentage of your producer's net profit. So it might be 1%, it might be 5% or whatever. So the more points you give out, the less money you're going to make in the end. But sometimes you need to
develop your
do
next
that.
project and so on.
Yeah.
That's all we have time for today, so we just, last question. No problem. One over here, yep. Sorry.
Since we're talking about cuts, I'd like to ask about like royalties that comes into play.
So I haven't been around that long enough to really get into royalties, but I know there's things like residuals that come into play for actors and stuff like that. So usually when you get an actor on board, they sign away their rights for a certain amount of time or a certain amount of screenings, depending on whether it's TV or film. Film, I think it's usually like 4 to 5 years around the world. They have the rights. As soon as that period is up, they start to get residuals. So they come out of the producer's net profits as well. It just depends what the awards.
What the actual deals and who's got deals. It's usually the kind of the green lighting actors, the ones who are big fish. Usually everyone else on a flat rate, and that's kind of it basically. So just to explain that.
That just what about like music royalties as well? Does that come into play?
Yeah, so usually you buy out the right. Anything that's like a track that's in a film or something like that, you have to pay for upfront the rights to use it. Sometimes you can get things like rights to use it for small amounts of things. Like for instance, if you've got a famous song, you can get it for cheaper if the rights are just for a couple of festival plays of your film, and then once that's out, once you've done your festivals, you're going to have to change that song out to something else that isn't going to cost the same amount of money, because clearances for like existing music can run into tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. Like I have been not surprised at seeing a price tag of like 50, 60 grand for the use of 30 seconds of one song. So it can be a really hefty part of the budget. But then if you've got that, you've got the rights to use that song forever.
Yeah, I just figured I'd ask because we're talking about budget and cuts. So thank you.
Yeah, well, good.
Okay, well, we'll finish up there. So I'd like to thank Helen for turning up on this.